The world has gone crazy for Zone 2 training. I mean, riding at a steady, consistent pace is a brilliant way of building your metabolic fitness, thereby making you a faster, more efficient and healthier cyclist without you actually having to try very hard. So it's not difficult to see why it's become so popular, really. But it is important to note that if you really want to maximise your fitness, particularly for the specific demands of cycling, it is not enough. I've covered anaerobic capacity training in another video, but what we would all benefit from too is more Zone 4. I'll explain what that is in just a minute, plus how you should train it and some tips on getting the most out of it. But first, we've partnered up with Zwift for this video for the simple reason that that's what I use when I do Zone 4 training. You don't have to, but I do. I live in a great area for cycling. Not like Mallorca great or Pyrenees great, but like, you know, good. However, what I've always struggled with here is finding roads for Zone 4 training, but now I'd just go and ride Zwift. So what is Zone 4? Well, it is just a name for a start, and a confusing one at that, because there are so many different zone models for training with 5, 6, 7, or perhaps even just 3 zones. It's hard to know where it even fits into that. It's also got other names: maximum metabolic steady state, that's a catchy one, good old FTP, even the now debunked anaerobic threshold. So perhaps we should just all agree here and now to give it another name, like Barbara or Brian, or perhaps just hard, because it is. That's what it is. It is just plain hard. When you're doing Zone 4, you're massively out of breath, and it can kind of hurt eventually. But let it be said, if I was to name a favourite training zone, it'd be this one. Barbara, love it. What does training at Zone 4 actually do for you then? Well, contrary to popular belief, it does not train your body to clear lactate, because lactate clearance is not done by fast twitch fibres, it's done by slow twitch fibres. And so to improve those, you need to ride long, easy miles, hence the importance of your Zone 2 work. What Zone 4 training does though, is it helps to improve the functionality of your fast twitch fibres, which are the ones you need to kick in anytime you knock it up a gear and require more power. Then it also helps your body to improve at transferring lactate from fast twitch to slow twitch fibres, where it can then be utilised. Situations occur really frequently in cycling where you need those fast twitch fibres. But anytime you're pressing hard on the pedals, climbing hills, riding fast on the flat, the good stuff basically. And if you don't use those fast twitch fibres regularly, they won't work as well as they could do. So you need to train them, and if you do, you'll end up being a much faster rider than if you only do Zone 2. So what do you have to do to train it? Well, let's get back to how hard it is. What intensity is Zone 4? I mean, Zone Brian, Barbara. If you have a power meter or a smart trainer, you're in Zone 4 at roughly your FTP. So theoretically, the power that you could sustain for 1 hour. Although in reality, it's probably closer to 45 minutes. If you have a heart rate monitor, you're in Zone 4 at roughly 90% of your maximum heart rate. If you don't have a power meter or a heart rate monitor, that is not a problem. You can do great Zone 4 training just based on your perceived effort, so what it feels like effectively. Although, I would say a heart rate monitor is a small investment, but really worthwhile, and I'll get onto why in just a second. In terms of what Zone 4 feels like though, the first thing I'd say is forget about your legs. They don't tend to tell you the truth. What you want to concentrate on is your breathing rate, okay? So if you can complete a sentence, you're going to need to have a good few deep breaths afterwards, because it does feel hard. You are really out of breath, but your breathing shouldn't be ragged. It will be fast but controlled. So that's kind of what you're looking for. But really, really important to note that when you're basing it on perceived effort, and indeed heart rate actually, it takes a while for your body to get used to the level of effort. So I'm going to demonstrate now, right? So I'm going to set off from cold, and I'm going to ride at my Zone 4 intensity, okay? And you can see and hear that to start with, obviously my breathing is completely normal, and my heart rate is still effectively at resting. Okay, 10 seconds in, still completely normal. Again, you wouldn't be able to hear it from my breathing rate. Then 20 seconds in, we're starting to get a little bit out of breath now, but even so, it's pretty controlled, and my heart rate hasn't budged. 40 seconds in, I'm starting to get a little bit out of breath now. It's a long time, really, if you're doing an 8-minute interval. My heart rate hasn't shifted at all. One minute in, I think I'm pretty much at the right spot. Yeah, it's taken a minute to get my effort feeling the same as the power I'm putting out. Now, it's a mistake that we all make pretty much until you can buy a power meter, and then it's the first lesson you learn. But don't go looking for the effort, wait for the effort to come to you. So don't start your zone 4 interval with a max sprint, because that's not zone 4. If you ride at a consistent pace, then you do it right. In the same way, actually, it takes a while for your breathing to come back down when you've finished. You might not want to hear this next bit, but it's almost impossible to recommend what training you should do and how much of it you should do, because we're all different. We've got different fitness levels, we've got different objectives, we respond differently to training. So for example, if you're just starting out, anything you do is probably going to make you fitter. Going from 3 hours a week to 6 hours a week of structured training, you're going to get fitter and feel better.
I think I've had some sort of out-of-body experience.
Whereas if you ask a seasoned pro to only do 6 hours a week, they're going to get worse and not better. So what I'm going to do is recommend that you stick to one of the key principles of training, something that will benefit both beginners and experts alike, and that is to keep a track of the training that you're doing and monitor how you respond to it. Make sure effectively that it's working for you, that you're getting better, that you're recovering from it rather than getting worse. Also remember that each training session is part of a bigger picture, a weekly picture, a monthly picture, a seasonal picture. And so actually what you do on any given week should change over time, because if you keep doing the same thing, you're not going to improve. I'm not going to leave you high and dry though. Oh no. A couple of sessions a week where you include this type of training are likely to be beneficial, but you do just have to bear in mind that this intensity is really demanding. So even if you're not adding to the number of hours that you're training a week, you are going to be considerably adding to your training load. So just be careful. And remember as well that for each of these sessions to be effective, doesn't mean you need to go so hard that at the end of them, someone's got to peel you off your bike. There's a bigger picture here.
Something like 4 times 8 minutes or 3 times 10 minutes at FTP or 90% heart rate in any session is likely to be really effective. Or 2 times 20 minutes at just under FTP, 95% perhaps, and about 85% heart rate. You can do all of these in an hour, but ideally, if you've got 90 minutes, you could do the first 45 minutes at zone 2 and then fit your intervals in the second half.
Do make sure you keep a track of how you're feeling as the days and the weeks go by. Perhaps just keep a record of it on Strava so that you can see at a glance if there's a pattern of you getting more and more tired, in which case you just need to take a little bit of time off. And this is also where wearing a heart rate monitor can be really handy. Your resting heart rate in the morning gives you a good indication of whether you're recovered, i.e. if your heart rate is a little bit higher than it normally would be, probably a sign that you need to take a day off. And then conversely, if your heart rate won't go up when you're training, that too is a sign that you're probably too tired and you should take the day off. Some more tips on doing zone 4 then. How do you practically go about this kind of training? Well, for most of us, we're going to find it easier doing zone 4 on climbs. So long, steady climbs are ideal for your long zone 4 intervals. But if you're going to tack it on the end of a zone 2 ride, That's harder to do in the hills. So I suppose the ideal route would be 30k of flat and then a nice long steady climb where you can do your repeats before dropping down to finish. Now it's kind of specific, so you can kind of see why I gravitated to doing it on Zwift. But if you do have that kind of terrain, there is nothing better than a zone 4 interval on a long steady climb. But bear in mind as well, traffic, road junctions and descents all ruin a good zone 4 interval. So quiet roads are definitely the best. So as mentioned, the indoor trainer is great, and with smart trainers and platforms like Zwift, it's no longer just effective training, but also actually quite fun. Of course, you can do those 8, 10 or 20-minute intervals on any number of the hills around the Zwiftiverse, or pick sessions from within the workouts, or indeed make your own workout. But it's also ideal for doing slightly longer intervals too, in a way that helps you to actually stick to them. Now, I flippin' love Alp to Zwift. It is perfect for this kind of training. Riding up there at 90% of your FTP is a mega training session. Although, if you're on Alp to Zwift for longer than an hour, you do have my permission to chuck a U-turn before the top. The robo pacers are also great. You pick the intensity that's right for you and your zone 4, and then you just hang in there on a fast group ride. As long as you don't get dropped, you will be in the correct zone. Now, speaking personally, I find that this is easily the best way for me to do zone 4 training and enjoy it. It might be different where you are, but that's me. In conclusion then, do not neglect your zone 4, or your zone Brian, or your zone Barbara. If you want to get fast on your bike, and who doesn't, this is really important work to do. But also bear in mind that it complements rather than replaces zone 2. So you need to find a way of getting both into your riding. But if you're short on time, it doesn't have to be done all in the same week. You could phase it perhaps. So you do a couple of weeks where you focus on zone 2 and then 1 week where you focus on zone 4. And remember as well, those tips on how to make it easier on yourself, because it is hard. So any kind of tricks are good in my book. Indoors, super long climbs are great. Structured training is great. Fast group rides are great. Then outdoors, nothing beats a long, quiet, steady climb. Get involved in the comments section. If you've got any questions, we'll do our best to answer them. Also, any tips or how you felt getting into zone 4 training in the past. Be really, really interested to read them. Big thanks to Zwift for supporting this video, and give it a big thumbs up if you've enjoyed it.